Let's go into antitrust and Qualcomm and the FTC. Okay, after years, the FTC, after being punched in the nose by the Ninth District Court of Appeals, said we're not going to go back to the well and try to go back after Qualcomm. The FTC press release was kind of snarky. Talking about forces out there that don't make sense. Well, that force was the FTC case getting tossed by the Ninth District. And this goes all the way back to the FTC suing Qualcomm with a complaint that was driven by Apple, Samsung, and even Huawei. And, here we are at the final conclusion of that. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that Qualcomm was not using monopolistic power to harm competition or harm the consumer. And their current methods of doing licensing were FRAND compliant. So this pretty much shuts the door. I thought about maybe, Daniel, putting a question mark on this because these things live forever, right? I mean, are we going to see something on 6G? Probably. Was this that the FTC had its hands full with Facebook and Apple and Amazon? I don't think so. The government has, in some cases, it seems like unlimited resources to go after people. I don't think that's the case. Heck, I'd hate to get a target on my back. But if you remember too, the Department of Justice actually came out and said, that the FTC ruling was odd, which you never see. And this even goes all the way back to, I called it a clown show. One of my, I don't know if it's my most proud moment I've had in my Forbes article, calling the FTC case a clown show, but it had all these weird things, right? It came in right at the very end of the Obama administration. They didn't even have all of the folks on the board to make the vote, right? Because they had left and came in the last days of the administration. And I also remember the weird thing, and I was, Daniel, I've talked about this before. I was what they call a key witness on AMD versus Intel and KFTC and EU versus Intel. I got grilled for 24 straight hours by Intel lawyers, which was fun. So I learned a little bit about antitrust face to face. And one of the things is that to monopolistic behavior is you actually harm a consumer. So did prices go up? Did innovation slow down? FTC never had evidence. They had a theory of evidence against that. The other thing is, hey, was competition harmed? Well, Apple actually shifted to Intel. There was competition out there. And look at MediaTek today on 5G. Last time I checked, MediaTek was doing pretty well with 5G. And Huawei, if they could actually get fab space, would be doing even better with their own designs. Samsung has their own 5G design. So net, the burden of proof was never there. There was this theory of potential theory of damages, not real damages. So anyways, it's over. Is it over? I don't know. Maybe in 5-10 years, it'll rear its ugly head again.
Look, when it comes to antitrust and regulators, it's never really over. But this particular case, the time expired for the FTC to appeal. This means that it would have to be a new case with new evidence that's different enough from the last case that it warrants presentation. If the FTC decides it has that case, I'm sure it will find a way to bring that case to light. Pat, you covered a lot of it, and there's not a lot for me to add, but I do want to say when you think about the witnesses that were provoking the idea of harm based upon this licensing model that costs somewhere around $20 or so per device to an Apple to use all of Qualcomm's billions of dollars of R&D investment that it does years ahead, by the way, of monetizing, there's two major problems with that. One is, how does a company worth trillions of dollars, a $1 trillion+ valuation company like Apple, that has margins that are speculatively over 80% on their iPhone devices, claim harm about, when they're charging over $1,500 for some of their top tier devices, claim harm over a $25 piece? That wasn't a harm thing. That was a greed thing. And it's very clear what they wanted to go down to a part level licensing using FRAND that others like Nokia and Ericsson, companies that, by the way, have been absolutely unwound by this kind of licensing, to not be able to make enough profit, not be able to grow. And they wanted to pull it apart and do the same thing. It was a thread in the sweater, and they wanted to pull the Qualcomm sweater apart, make it a weaker company. And by making it a weaker company, it put more cachet around Apple and the innovation that Apple creates. But Apple is an implementer as much as an innovator. Many times is an implementer, where Qualcomm legitimately right now, you want to talk about companies involved in 6G, Qualcomm is a company involved in 6G. Now, I'm tired already of talking about 6G because 5G is barely here. But they right now are spending billions of dollars to make sure that they're part of the standards creation for the rest of the 5G releases and what's going to be part of 6G. And they do not know for certain what that will mean financially, but that's the risk companies take. So Judge Lucy Koh, the FTC, Apple, Samsung, Huawei, all these companies that we're sitting there crying foul are companies that want to take out the benefits of companies that make big risks in innovation early on. Yes, I'm bullish and I'm positive about Qualcomm, but we don't need, that's not the kind of harm antitrust regulators are there to save. It's for people like you and me, people that are listening to this show right now, that don't want to pay $1,500 for a device that could be $1,000 and still they can make a lot of money. Because I'll go any day, Pat, of the week and look at earnings for Apple and look at earnings for Qualcomm and look at the margins. I'm pretty comfortable saying Apple is not harmed by anything Qualcomm's doing when you look at its bottom line performance.
Do you think, gosh, you were on a freaking roll, dude. It must be Friday. So do you think Apple is at risk of looking like a harming monopolist in the way that it treated Qualcomm? The day before the settlement, what came out in what was called the OEM trial in San Diego, evidence came out that there was a plan that Apple had to crush Qualcomm. It was essentially, hey, let's go get the lower cost licensees so we can set a low bar that makes Qualcomm price looks high. And then we're going to stop paying Qualcomm on there. It was all, and it didn't get a whole lot of coverage because literally the day after they settled, but I knew there was a plan to crush Qualcomm. I was told by everybody there wasn't, but there was. I don't always get it right, but I was here because I know how, business is tough. And Apple is one of the fiercest competitors out there, even though they're a juggernaut in terms of size. They are fierce, and they would have crushed. Look at all the companies who tried to crush Qualcomm. I mean, Broadcom was going to come in and cut off its research, right? That would have killed it. I mean, every major international trust came in. I mean,
a lot of their partners. I mean, these OEMs are deep Qualcomm partners, but all of them benefited to see a weaker Qualcomm. But the U.S. and the innovation ecosystem of the U.S. does not benefit. It is one of the national treasures of innovation here in the U.S. And it would be a very risky thing for regulators to try to, to weaken this company who's spending so much money to keep American technology companies in the lead on certain connective and communications technologies. Pat, you know what? This was supposed to be a 2-minute quick 6-5 topic. This has ended up being our longest topic of the show. Yeah. But it is a passion topic. I don't feel sorry for any of those big companies. I do feel that consumers need to be protected. That's what regulators should be doing. I hope that's what they're paying attention to. By the way, I think Apple has a ping pong paddle that takes every ball like this that gets shot at them, and it's got a redirect button straight at Amazon. Just
right.
Let me shoot it right over to Amazon.
Right. Right, exactly. And you know, interestingly enough, Apple, in some of the arguments it used against Qualcomm, is coming back to bite it in its own. Now it's being investigated as well.